Hello world, my name is Daniel, my viewers call me Danny. I'm the guy you can see on the video. I'm 40 years old, I'm living a great life, and I am a former ADHD, totally lost boy. This material is not a medical advice. You may need to consult your child's behavior and health with a skillful professional doctor. But this video can teach you an amazingly effective therapy for kids and grown-ups, especially in the modern society. And there comes a true story with it. My story. First, take a closer look at what I'm doing here. This is the activity that requires mainly two things: attention and precision. Once again, AD, attention disorder, HD, hyperactivity disorder. Which means that any activity which requires these two main things that ADHD people lack and are enjoyable will be a very effective therapy. But let's go back to my story. I was born in the early 80s in Poland, where ADHD was not the fancy thing and not every third or fifth child would be diagnosed with ADHD and drugged. I was not diagnosed with ADHD. But let me just read for you some main symptoms of the ADHD. Number 1, having a short attention span and being easily distracted. Does it sound familiar? Making careless mistakes, appearing forgetful or losing things. Can you imagine that one day we are walking with my dad to the school, he was walking me to the school, and we find my shoes on the sidewalk just because the day before I kind of forgot to hold them in my hand coming home from the school. Then about the hyperactivity, being unable to sit still, especially in calm or quiet surroundings. Yeah, we need distractions today, but there was not so many distractions in the 80s. I would still have problems sitting still. My dad recalls till this day that one of the funniest things was to see me drawing something in my exercise book. Do you know how I would do it? I would put the book on the floor, not at the table, on the floor, and then I would kind of walk around it drawing something. You can imagine how the drawing would look like, but also you can imagine how unable to sit still I was. Another symptom of the ADHD is constantly fidgeting. I was fidgeting with my ankles, with my knees, with my head, and with my fingers. I was constantly doing something. People who never had these problems can only try to imagine how tiring it is not to be able to stop doing things. And then I had these nervous tics. I was doing weird, ugly things with my mouth and with my whole face. Very embarrassing things. I couldn't stop doing it even at school. And finally, imagine that we have the chandeliers at our house. Nothing fancy, just some glass-made chandelier. I broke all of them.
Yeah, we had one of those things.
And of course, the boy or girl who is breaking things all the time, cannot focus on learning, is a troublemaker at school, and he or she has busted all the chandeliers at home, is a naughty boy, right? Or naughty girl. And as much as you, the parents of the so-called ADHD child, are trying to understand the child, just as my parents tried to understand me, they were understanding. I'm gonna tell you something. It's impossible to understand the so-called ADHD child. Why? Because when you ask the child, why can't you just sit for 60 seconds? The child doesn't know. That kid doesn't understand himself. The kid doesn't want to be running around all the time, breaking things and getting into troubles every other day with his parents. It's not a wicked child, but listen to this. The children need attention, and the children with attention disorder need more attention. But don't worry, you don't have to be with the child all the times. Once you provide the therapeutic activity for the child, there is a hope for the child, because that's what I got. Very fortunately for me, my dad is a sculptor, thank God. I would spend a lot of time with him in his workshop, doing things, of course breaking stuff and cutting myself, even though he was watching me, and breaking my toy cars with a hammer. But listen to this, in these moments, the time stopped for me, my nervous tics stopped, and I started creating something. And then came two other highly therapeutic things for me. Number one, I got my first bicycle, little bicycle. I was riding it a lot. Physical activity, dear parents, girls and boys need it. So leave the smartphone, let them ride the bicycle. And the second one was that my uncle has brought from France the smallest box of the Lego bricks. I could make 50 different versions of that tiny police car. There was a hope for that boy right now, and so there is for your kids as well. And for you, if you are the ADHD child or maybe even a grown-up, many things have changed since I found these activities which were kind of switching the clock off. I was spending hundreds of hours building Lego. I was spending hundreds of hours with my dad in his workshop. And then when I was 12 years old, I got my first mountain bike. I mean, it was a mountain bike my parents bought me for about $130. Since then, I would do basically three things: ride my bike, fix my bike, and listen to the music.
Oh, it hurts to grow up, 'cause nothing makes sense anymore.
But let's go back to that ADHD therapy. You see, I'm pulling now the crankset from the bicycle. You cannot lack attention and thread this extractor. You just can't. And very important thing is that you are not being forced into like attention, focus now. You just flow into it because you have a job that you enjoy to do. And that's the key for any therapy. So when you ask then that little boy, Daniel, shall we go somewhere or do something? No, I'm building now my police car out of Lego, or I'm cleaning my bike, or maybe you can ask that little girl with ADHD, shall we play some video games? And she'll say, no, I need to paint now this little house for my Barbie that my dad has made out of the carton box or something. This is a true therapy. Children never ask for batteries in their toys and remote controls and video games. Children will always prefer the simplest toys which they can play with using their imagination. Of course, maybe before we hook them with those video games and make them addicted to them. But we can still present to these kids the joy of manual work, not the manual work itself, the joy of the manual work. But you, as a parent, are the unmissable link in that process.
Makes sense. No, nothing makes sense anymore. Teach me how to fall into the eye.
And it's understandable that some of you will be asking yourselves, or even myself, Daniel, were you really an ADHD child? You've mentioned some symptoms. Well, there were much more. Some of them being very embarrassing, and one of the symptoms that was most dangerous for my life was the little or no sense of danger, which is the problem of the ADHD child, and that was certainly mine. Kids that run, fight with the parents, have little or no sense of danger, so that they do dangerous things. They beat others, they break things. These are not wicked kids. These are the kids who have lots of energy in them, and they need some, I wouldn't even say help. Okay, we need to help them find that activity which will get them into this flow state. Once they are there, they have lost the time. They have so much energy in them and creativity. Just look at my channel. You know, all the things I'm doing on the channel here, the channel I've built and I'm proud of, actually originate from my childhood. and just look how amazing it is. My hyperactivity was turned into the love of the sport. I am a fit guy and I'm not doing it with the impulsiveness. My excessive talking, which is one of the ADHD symptoms, was turned into speaking a couple of languages. I speak Polish, German, English, and Icelandic, and I love talking with people. Now about that symptom of little or no sense of danger. Well, I do have the sense of danger. I don't risk my life, for example, riding my mountain bike. But I am able to make risky moves business-wise. I have made a couple of really brave moves with my companies. My family members, some of them were saying that this is crazy. Most of the people would never do this. But my business is skyrocketing. These moves were not stupid, but they were brave. Tell me, do you know of any 30 or 25 years old man who is handsome and very intelligent? He's making a software, or he's some other kind of freelancer, working maybe 8 or 10 hours a day, doing really well with his business, and then coming home, spending time on social media and his PlayStation, being depressed. I know many such examples. One of these is the guy who has told his therapist that he's a software making man, and he said he makes a lot of money, but he never sees the result of his work. It's nothing you can touch, and it doesn't give him that feeling of fulfillment. And our modern society goes more and more online. I'm online with this video, right? So we are working more online. Everything is somewhere in the cloud, and we don't really understand what's the result of our work, except for the money, which we have sometimes, maybe even too much. Or maybe you work for some huge corporation and you are only a small, fraction, little piece of a huge company. You don't really see the effects of your work. I'm not saying don't do this work, don't become a YouTuber, which is so fancy right now. Don't be a freelancer. I'm saying find in your life something which will give you the fulfillment, the feeling of fulfillment. That is exactly what so-called ADHD children need. They need some fulfilling work. When children gather together and they start playing, they will very often play in work, right? So the girl will stay at home and fix some meal, and the boy will go to the work, and then he comes back and they have children, right? They play the life, and the life is beautiful. And so I'm leaving you right now with this handcraft, this work that fulfills me so much. When I see the difference before and after, I can make the picture before, I can make the picture after. I need to be focused during that job, and I feel fulfillment. That's something that saved me. It really saved me. So now just a couple of minutes for you to see a man at work and some nice bicycle tools. Take care.